how not to burn bridges inside of your company, especially with the customers that you have. It's so important that we are always focusing on this topic of how you can build bridges, not burn them. Because in business, your influence and your word and your trust and your brand is everything. If you lose that, if that goes out the window, you're done as a business owner. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Partners Corner. My name is Ryan Adams and I have this lovely lady next to me, Beatriz Canguçu.
Hello, everyone.
She is the COO here at Humify and a partner with me. It's such a pleasure to be with you again today. And we're going to be talking about a topic that I believe is very important for any business owner that's either getting started or has been doing it for a while, right?
Yes, it is.
How not to burn bridges inside of your company, especially with the customers that you have. It's so important that we are always focusing on this topic of how you can build bridges, not burn them. Because in business, your influence and your word and your trust and your brand is everything. If you lose that, if that goes out the window, you're done as a business owner. You can only go so far. And I also believe the people that are working with you will only work with you so long. And I believe that if we can really grow in this area of how to build strong bridges instead of burning bridges, I believe we can really be successful as business owners, as entrepreneurs in the marketplace. Today, Bia, we're going to get started. We have a few topics that we're going to be going over, and I believe it's going to be really powerful topic as we're talking about building bridges, not burning them. Let's talk about the first one, right? How to handle conflicts that you didn't start. Oh my goodness.
Wow. Yes, that's a tough one.
I didn't start this conflict. Why am I in the middle? Why am I being looped into the middle of this conflict right here?
Yes, as hard as it can be, you need to try to find a middle ground.
That's good.
And though you say, okay, how did I ended up here? That was even my fault. Sometimes we say this in the middle of conversation, or maybe, oh, I have set aside previously, you guys, prior, no one gave me the attention at the time. Now, why do I need to be part of this conversation, this conflict, that I should not be involved? First of all, if you're part of an organization, you should be there. And though sometimes we think of ourselves that is different layers of responsibility, but something that we're going to be discussing during this topic today is about our goal is not just to compete or to make sure who is right or who is wrong in a situation. Choose or picking sides. Our goal is to complete the mission. For any sort of conflict, I try, how can I find a middle ground? What are the things that I need to be accountable for right now? And what are the things that I'm gonna have to ask help for to share this accountability or even to come up with the solution.
For sure. And even being able to identify who's at fault and who is responsible for this. And I think that demands a great level of emotional intelligence. And that's something that we were talking about before we got on this conversation today. We were talking about the difference between emotional intelligence and the difference between emotional reaction, especially with CEOs, our visionaries, our founders. They're very emotional people. Would you agree with that, Beatriz?
Well, I'm not walk with those type of people at all.
You don't walk with those type of people?
No, I mean, besides of my bosses.
No, but it's true because many times we can really react emotionally. We can have those reactions, emotional reactions, and that can really get us in a lot of trouble, especially when we're brought into these types of conflicts that maybe we didn't even start. So it demands a really high level of emotional intelligence. And we were talking about this, and you were explaining to me before we got on this conversation about really understanding the difference between fault and responsibility and those layers. What are some action points, or what are some things that you would encourage people that are watching this when these types of problems come, of like discovering who's at fault and what is the responsibility behind this?
When we talk about conflict, we need to understand that there is a friction, a problem, something that we are conflicting at it, or that is something that we need to solve.
That's good.
That's when we have this situation, the first thing that we should be asking ourselves, first we need to start to asking the right questions. Yes, who is responsible for it is one important question, but it's not the only question. We need to start to identify how this started to happen. Go to the root of the problem, something that we learned through, not just by experience, but so many other books that we can find out there, teach us, find the root. Sometimes we look to the problem just seeing for the the top of the surface or the top of the iceberg. And maybe there are so many other things, many that is actually the iceberg bottom. And that's the first thing that we should be attentive to, how this problem started.
That's really good.
What was the foundation? What was the roots? And when you start to identify the roots, maybe you're going to see that it's not just about one person being responsible for. You're going to see that there are many people around, because usually you are inside of a living organization, live organization. So you're going to see that there are many parts between that situation that brought you there. And there are many people that it's involved or integrated or connected to that situation.
That's really good.
And when you start to identify the roots of things, maybe you're starting to better bring the alignment between the responsibilities.
That's so powerful. As you were getting that imagery, that example of an iceberg, is interesting because, as you know how icebergs are, at the tip of it, it doesn't look as prominent, doesn't look as big, but it takes really going under the surface, under the water, to see the full scope of the magnitude of that iceberg. And many times we don't do that, and we just respond really quickly. We don't realize that there's so many deeper things that we have to handle, that we have to discuss, or maybe difficult conversations, or different things that you have to analyze. And so going underneath that surface level and going and really analyzing, okay, this is the root of the problem. Number one, I think that is a very healthy way of doing things, of dealing with problems. But at the same time, I think it prevents things in the future of taking place, because you really go there and say, okay, we're gonna resolve this. We're gonna figure out how we can resolve this and make sure maybe we don't go back to that again.
Yes.
And again, even if you weren't the one that didn't start the conflict, I think once you get into it, it's important to really analyze and take the time to really go there. And I wrote this is take the hit publicly, deal with it privately.
Yes.
And even if something like that comes across your table and you're like, I didn't start this, or this wasn't necessarily our issue that we had to go through, or we weren't the ones to cause this problem, I would say is we're going to talk about this taking ownership. So publicly take ownership, or publicly deal with the situation, and then go at home. You can cry it out, have a cry session if you need it. Just
wash
deal with
the
it.
dirty laundry.
Wash the dirty laundry in the private. Don't do it in the public. I've always learned that, and I think it's really important. Well, let's talk about the second thing that we see, especially when you're doing your best not to, and I always say doing your best not to burn bridges, because no one's perfect. We all have problems. We've all dealt with these situations. We've failed in business and we've had to get back up. So I always say we do our best. But the second thing is owning mistakes as a leader. This is so important, and it kind of goes for that last point that I just put out there. What was it? Take the hit publicly and deal with it privately. I think this really follows through on this point here of owning your mistakes as a leader, because people are watching inside of your organization, right?
Yes, and when you talk also about the customer side, sometimes you ended up finding conflicts that maybe did not come for you for your service or for the things that you're handling over to them. But if the conflicts emerge, one thing that you're also discussing is that sometimes the customer, in order for us not to burn a bridge or even miss that contract or that agreement, sometimes the customer just wants us to find out the middle ground and give him some credibility. Sometimes you are caught up by surprise. That's not something that was involved in first service, but that's something that is concerning you. We got you. You have a back. Let's see what's potential solutions or potential ideas that we can bring to the table. And maybe it's not even your route. Yeah. Sometimes we have to deal with customers, but that's when honor your responsibility as a leader that shows up.
Hands down.
Because you're going to say, maybe that's something, a church service, that's something that was added up to I handed over my part, and there was additional provider that maybe mixed up things. But now I'm going to want the responsibility of bring the solution.
Oh yeah, hands
down. Be part of the solution.
And I believe that when you take this posture, Bia, and we've seen this countless times, when you take this posture of ownership and you take this posture of saying, we got your back. Maybe this was our fault. Maybe this wasn't our fault. Yep. Maybe it was a freak accident or some kind of event that was out of your control. But the fact that you show up and the fact that you take ownership of it and that you're there, you're letting the person know we're there to walk with you. I believe that this reflects inside of your team. Your team is going to absorb the very posture that you have as a business owner. And this is so important because if you don't know how to model accountability in regards to specifically in this topic of owning mistakes and owning things that happen, whether it's your fault or not your fault, but the fact that you do this, it's going to set the tone for the team. This is something that I've learned countless times, even with one of my brothers. I consider him as a brother, as a great friend, Cap Chatfield. I've had the privilege of working with him, and there was moments, good moments and bad moments, and we all have that in business. But one thing I learned a lot with Cap, especially in the beginning years of working with him, is he would always say, is that we need to take ownership of this. We need to get a handle on this. We need to do whatever we can to make this work. And I learned from this because when you take ownership, it's like you're building trust. And I wrote this down that when you take the time to take ownership, what this does is this builds trust. So that it is strength, it's not a weakness. And I believe that more than ever, we have to do everything that we can to grow in this area of taking ownership. Because as you said, the customer wants to know that you're there for them. They want to know that you have their back. And it's not who can fight this out the most, but who can take the position of ownership. And I believe that is where business is won. I really believe that's where business is won.
So good.
Well, guys, we want to move, as always, want to keep our topics as quick as possible, because we know you got a lot on your plate. We're all doing a lot of things in business, but we want to touch on one last thing, and maybe we're opening up a Pandora's box here. Maybe this is a little too much, but it kind of is important, is how to have these difficult conversations with people. And I think it's important. Bia, how can you have difficult conversations with customers without burning bridge?
We have the 3 T's.
Oh, come on.
Time, tone, and truth.
Ooh, that's really good.
You need to understand the right timing. It's not because that conversations happen right away or in that moment that you need to explain or share everything.
Yep.
Maybe gonna smooth things down when you say, I'm gonna verify the facts, I'm gonna understand what happened. Always apologize first, because that moment, it also requires responsibility, and leadership always require a tone of humility.
There it is.
And you being humble and say, I don't know whose fault is this, but I'm gonna verify the facts and I'm gonna bring you potential solutions. Yeah. Have the right time, understand when you're gonna bring potential solutions. Don't try to solve everything at once. And I know that as good leaders, we always try to solve things or to fix things right away. Yeah. And sometimes it's not always the best call. And have this time, and also the tone in these momentos. And when you are dealing with conflict, you need to make sure that you are focused. How can I keep myself in the right tone, with the right posture? And though you might be, as Ryan said, that's the moment that emotional intelligence, no? And with the emotional intelligence, you have the correct reaction. And with that, you're gonna be honest. And when the time comes, you're gonna show the facts with honesty, transparency, but with efficiency.
I love that. And something you're very good at this, by the way, because I think it's part of your makeup. I think it's part of your background, especially as the COO. You're calculative. You know how to operate on that type of level. But me as a person that's a lot more emotional, that is a person, and I'm trying to work on that. But I think it's part of who I am as a visionary, as a CEO. It's a gift, right? But one thing that I've done, and you guys can take notes on this or not. So for all of the visionaries out there, or CEOs who maybe don't have the gift like that Bia has, it's very more structural, it's analytical, you're able to dissect those and have a process behind it. Something that I've done when I'm having difficult conversations, I do this, I script it out. Like I write a script of what I'm going to talk about, because we say in Portuguese, viajar no maionese, you can start to daydream or start going off on a different rabbit trail. So script it out. Then what you need to do within that conversation is create safety. And I think creating safety, what does that mean? Is when you create this environment of safety where they feel comfortable to share their feelings and their emotions and how they perceive it, as well as you're making the environment comfortable to pleasing. It's not like you're walking in there with guns blazing, you're ready to fight. You gotta be really careful and create a safe environment for those conversations. And that I would say demands, you said humility, it demands you to slow down, be quick to listen and slow to speak. I think it's very important. And lastly is you gotta separate the facts from the emotions. And that's something that I've really had to learn as a business owner, is you have to be able to separate those two. what is facts and what is emotions. Because in the moment, in the heat of the moment, it can get real hot. It can get real hot. So slowing down, really deciphering what those are. And that takes, I think, preparing yourself for that. And so for all those people that are, those visionaries and CEOs, maybe you're a CEO and you're visionary, well, I'm more like Bia, great, good for you, that's awesome. You're hybrid leader, that's awesome. But for those maybe who don't have that, take a moment, script it out, go slow, build the environment, kind of count the cost first, and then have those conversations. But nonetheless, we have to have those conversations.
Yes.
Right? We have to have those conversations because without those conversations, it's almost inevitable that you will burn the bridge.
Yes, and they are so necessary for you to continue involved in the relationship. And there are also always opportunities to grow.
Hands down. And so I want to leave you guys with this with kind of a final reflection. And I was writing this. It says, burning a bridge is easy. Very easy. Preserving a bridge, that takes wisdom.
Yes.
And that takes time.
Yes.
And that takes calculation. So I'll say it again, is burning a bridge is easy. Preserving the bridge, even when it's shaky, even when it's hard, it takes a lot of wisdom and it takes time.
A lot of wisdom.
So we want to leave that with you guys. Guys, take this. I really believe that there are some incredible long-term wins that are headed your way. But if you're not in it and you're not focused on how to do this, how to handle these types of situations, you could very easily burn a bridge that never meant to be burned. Like you maybe didn't need to go there. And so we really, today is speaking from experience. We've had a lot of wins, but we've also had some failures.
Yeah.
And so we reflect on this and we want to pass this wisdom off to you. And we believe that these types of teachings are essential for the development of your business. Until the next episode, we want to leave you with this. Don't burn bridges, right, Bia?
Yep.
Let's build bridges.
Yes, build bridges.
Every single day. And we believe that you're going to be a success. So until the next episode, we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah.